I'm making a recording here as an afterthought, but I think an important one. When I first started this series, I had intended to provide basically practical instruction in meditation and other practices, and leave the analysis of the results very much like the Buddha said for the practitioner to test. However, upon more reflection, I'm thinking that practice without study in the tradition is not anything. It's like lacking legs or lacking arms if it lacks study and reflection. So upon that, I have decided to include in this series a group of discussion of different topics in Buddhist teaching that are not necessarily meditation instruction. I would not want to cheat anyone that wanted to listen to all the recordings from that aspect. Of course, always the best is to find a teacher, a realized master that can help you practice and study, as well as a group that will support you in the practice. It's very, very difficult to practice solo, almost impossible. I cannot imagine anyone who could sustain a practice for years without a group to support them. So it isn't so much what the group believes as a whole, if it's a Dharma group, but the fact that you have support in meditation. In fact, for example, Zen groups, which are much less involved in intellectual discussion, might be the best for a beginner. At least that was my history. I studied Zen for 3 years before studying with Trungpa Rinpoche, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in the 70s for a few more years after that. In any case, why is study important? Study is important because meditation alone does not provide sufficient clarification. What study does is it provides you material for thought, your thinking in any case. And it must be realized that whatever the Buddha's teachings are, it's not telling you that this is the capital T truth. The truth is to be seen directly, and that takes quite a while of practice and realization. So it's a way to just get a hold on this endeavor to start by studying. And the Buddhist teachings do reflect the realities that we encounter in meditation much more closely than many other teachings, even though they are not held to be eternal, to be revelation. There are several levels of teaching. At some point we might discuss that. And they're all really called provisional truths. They're provisional. If you take the metaphor of the ship that will take you from the shore of samsara to the shore of nirvana, opposing samsara to nirvana, which is dualistic in itself, then the teachings are merely an expedient means, a raft to take you. Once you reach the shore of nirvana, so to speak, then that raft can be given up. Although, out of personality, habit, and respect and love, we continue to cherish the teachings and certainly honor our teacher. It is said even when the student surpasses the teacher, the student will continue to honor his master as a Buddha, because what we take, whoever brings the word of the Buddha to us is kinder than the Buddha, because the Buddha was born at a time when we were not born. We think, we don't remember. But our teacher is born when we are born, and is born with a physical body, so we're able to see and hear him or her, and therefore, by giving us the milk of the Dharma, the teacher is kinder than the Buddha, who managed to be born at a different time. We think, I don't remember. Even His Holiness the Dalai Lama admits he doesn't remember prior birth, but there are certain trends, characteristics that His Holiness finds that are continuous, that continue with the previous birth. Now, personally, I take it for granted that this is so. I don't particularly have any memories or dreams or visions or anything like that, but it's taken to be so. So in any case, why study? One of the reasons to study is that when we start doing meditation, we have all kinds of doubts, intellectual doubts, especially Westerners do, and reflection and use of logic use of guidance from the Dharma, from the teachings, is helpful in removing those doubts so we can relax into meditation. Now, such a master as Shenpen Hokham says that when teaching Westerners, it is important to get them started meditating. Why? Because the Westerners lack initially faith and devotion. I mean, obviously Buddhism is a new thing to many people. It may be an exotic thing, it may be kind of a novelty. So when we go into Buddhism at first, we lack faith, we lack devotion in the teacher. It's difficult for us to bend our heads around regarding a human being as a Buddha, a master as a Buddha. And what does that mean? We wonder at what point do we sort out reality if we happen to have the bad fortune, the bad karma to connect with someone who claims to be a master, who's actually in some way abusing their students. At what point do we declare this is so, we cut free? And we must test the teacher for years before we, if necessary for years, it could be weeks, it's up to you, but before one commits themselves to them as a master, which is sort of an engagement, it's not a marriage. A master is important, devotion is important, but the Westerners, again, don't start there. So meditation, starting right away with meditation, particularly shamatha, allows Westerners to begin to develop experience, and then that experience can be compared to the teaching. And as we confirm that what's described to us in the teachings corresponds to what we experience in meditation, that increases our confidence. Confidence is an important word. Confidence allows us to relax, allows us to see that gradually, even though we are not realized Buddhas yet, we begin to see the light at the beginning of the tunnel, you might say, led by someone who is closer to the end or at the end of the tunnel. We begin to make headway. It's like having a guide in a jungle, a guide who's cleared a path for us, and our trust increases as this guide continues to describe things that are going to come up. They may say, well, in this area there are snakes, in this area we'll find good water, and so on. And as these things happen, we begin to think, well, this is a trustworthy guide. It's the same with a master. So with study, again, then we receive teachings, and these teachings we reflect upon. We test them in the light of our own experience, and as we confirm them, we relax, we develop confidence, and this confidence will allow us to completely relax and allow the light of Dharma to dawn in our hearts. Normally, if someone were to come off the street, so to speak, and have a realization, experience a realization, they would not know what to do with it. They would, think it's that they're great, that they had a bliss experience, that God spoke to them, whatever fantasy, and in time that experience would be covered up again by their personality, which is, without practice, the personality is primarily self-centered, egotistical, number one first, whereas in the Dharma we learn to develop compassion, generosity, to let go of grasping of solid, permanent objects, imagined solid, permanent objects, both our personality as well as the objects in the world. These are, indeed, this grasping is the main obstacle to realization. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this because I think it's important to present why it is important to have some doctrinal teachings. They're not philosophy, they're not speculation, particularly when you see surveys or history philosophy. You read so-and-so was speculative, like, for example, Meister Eckhart described having a speculative philosophy. But that philosophy is based on experience. It's really an empirical philosophy. And we might also discuss some of the Western so-called idealist philosophers, such as Bishop Berkeley, for example, or David Hume, an empiricist. Some of those philosophers that came, Descartes, that came in some ways close to the Buddhist understanding.